I'm I work in the Italian National Statistical Institute, and I propose this session on different sources of data and their integration, policy indicators for the education and training system. And I think it's good, this session in this conference, because it's very important to look at the integration of data from different sources. In the Italian National Statistical Institute, we have many sources of data on education. We have the labor force survey, the most important survey on education in the Italian National Statistical Institute, but we have also a survey on disabled people in the school, a survey on immigrated people in the school, and also we collect also the data from Ministry of Education. And we have three papers, because the first doesn't here. And now we start with an interesting paper on the integration between data from National Student Register and from INVALSI database. And the title is Exploring the Predictive Power of Standardizzated and Non-Standardizzated Evaluation on Italian University Fresh People Performance. And the speakers are Gabriele Lombardi from University of Florence and with Giulio Bellini from University of Siena. The floor is yours.
Yes, I'm Gabriele Lombardi, I'm a postdoc at the University of Florence, and this is a joint work with Giulio Bellini from University of Siena, and we are going to present the first results that we obtained on this exploratory analysis about the performance of university fresh peoples, so students at the very first year of the university enrollment. We will try to briefly answer to two research questions. The first is, our INVALSI and ANS database jointly good in explaining Italian higher education fresh people's performance? And the second is, what is the best predictor of fresh people's performance among socio-demographic characteristics, standardized and non-standardized evaluation? So basically, let me say from the beginning that with standardized evaluations, we intend in this framework INVALSI scores, and as non-standardized evaluations, we intend mainly the high school final grade, but also we have the scores of the oral examination in Italian and mathematics during the first semester of the last year of the enrollment at the high school. As everyone knows, there is a huge debate about the effectiveness of standardized evaluation in the high school. I could find 1,000 of articles about this. I just choose, for the sake of simplicity, to quote this debate on the journal Il Mulino, because it's interesting, because it's on the very same journal. So we can address the contribution of Baccini and Latempa, which highlight the standardized evaluation as a political choice, and they have a position very against the INVALSI evaluation, basically because in a very simple way, they are scared about the fact that INVALSI evaluation can be used in order to track the future of students. So, for example, deciding who should attend the university and who shouldn't in the very long run. Paglieri, on the very same journal, has a different view. He said, okay, yes, I agree that standardized evaluation is a political choice, but I highlight the fact that evaluation is different from measurement. And basically, standardized and non-standardized evaluations have two different and independent roles. So evaluation is something that should be done by the teachers because they know the path of the students, but we need INVALSI for measurement because we need to obtain a picture of the effective competencies acquired and on the state of the entire educational framework. So a measurement role in this case. What can we learn on the other side from the scientific literature? As you can see here, there are 4 papers quoted, and 3 of them are very, very old paper because this debate is in place since decades. So, what can we say for the first thing is that is very recognized the role of teachers during the evaluation process because they spend a large amount of time with students and they play an active role in the development of their skills. So we cannot get rid of the role of teachers during the evaluation process. Also what we know also from psychology and neuropsychology is that there is a specific mindset that helps a student to be successful. So if we use only standardized evaluation in order to, for example, employ them for an admission process, we should find a way to demonstrate that we have a growth of mindset. What happens with standardized evaluation is, in some sense, that we have a photograph picture, which is very static and cannot depict so good what is the overall mindset of a student. Nonetheless, standardized testing is an important policy tool for the policymaker, indeed. With some risks, because it increases the time spent in special test preparation as activity, and this time is subtracted to meaningful educational activities. Also, some studies show that the use of standardized tests change very little the teacher's perception of the students, and this small percentage of change in teacher's perception is in raising and not lowering ratings of students, which is also something that, in my opinion, is coherent with what we have seen this morning. So this effect that where the high school final grades are higher than the INVALSI scores are lower, and in some sense we have some hints about that in a very old paper from 1977. So what are we going to do? We have at this moment a sample of the information that we can join from the INVALSI dataset and the Italian student register, which collect information about university students. So we can merge these two datasets. And what is the problem? Of course, this kind of study suffers for a big self-selection bias because we can account only for those INVALSI tests for those students who decide at the end to go in university. We don't know anything about those students who does not apply for the university. That data are not available at all for us. So we are at this stage trying to clean as much as possible the dataset. So in this moment we lose with this version of the analysis kind of a 30–40% of observations because we are still cleaning the dataset, but we have a very good sample of more than 100,000 students at the very first year and at the very first enrollment in the university system. So we don't control only for the fact that they are at the first year of the bachelor, but it is the first time that they come into the university system. What is our dependent variable? We have two dichotomic indicators that we can control alternatively. One is assumes value 1 for a student who has not completed at least 5 CFUs. So basically we have students that do nothing during the first year, and students that do something. But also another indicator, which is 1 if a student has completed at least 30 CFUs during the first year, 0 otherwise. So a kind of a good students in this case, and bad students in 0. And we have these characteristics. So sociodemographics, as you can see, is intended in a very broad sense. So basically there is everything in there. So we have gender, parents' education, the individual SESC, which is the indicator of the socioeconomic background in some sense, Italian citizenship, the type of high school, if the high school was private or not, the school, the SES for the entire school where the students studied. We have the geographical marker of the university, if the university chosen is private or not, if the student is a mover with a very easy formulation for the moment, which is more than 60 minutes by car from the hometown to university, the university discipline chosen, and the high school regions. Then we have, for the non-standardized evaluation and standardized evaluation, what I said before, so high school final grade and grades in Italian and mathematics at the oral examination, and standardized evaluations, the score in Italian and mathematics for the INVALSI test during the 5th high school year, so grade 13. Here we can see some descriptive statistics. I don't want to spend so much time here, but I want to highlight just some meaningful statistics. For example, here we have the mother education. So, as you can see, for the mother education, we have that for those who have less than 5 CFUs, only the 29.6% of our sample has an education more than high school, which increased to the 35% for those who have greater than 30 CFUs. The opposite happens for those mothers who have less than the high school degree. So the 28.1% for those who have less than 5 CFUs, and the 22.8% for those who have more than 30 CFUs. So we can see how the family background can influence the performance of the students. Then we can see that something similar happens with the type of the high school. So look just to those who not attend Lyceum. 48% of them gain less than 5 CFUs during the first year of university, and only the 30.6% more than 30 CFUs. Look at the scientific Lyceum. 30.9% less than 5 CFUs, and 44.2% more than 30 CFUs. So there is a huge difference here. And also the same happens for the high school AESS. So if a student comes from an high school with a very rich peers in the same high school, is more, already from the descriptive statistics, is more likely to have a better performance during the high school, and this is, in my opinion, very impressive. What happens with here we have the other descriptive statistics for the universities, but what happens with the evaluation? So the high school final grade is in the sample, the average is about 81, which decreases to 76 for those who have minus 5 CFUs, and is more than 83 for those who have greater than 30 CFUs. The same pattern emerged for all the other examinations, so this is what we expect. Who was a low performer during the high school is a low performer during the university, both if we consider standardized or non-standardized evaluations. So, here we can see into our sample what is the composition, and we can see that we depict more or less, also if we don't have complete data, more or less the same picture that we obtain usually from INVALSI data. So we can see that who is a better performer in the INVALSI statistics are the northern students, and the opposite happens with the high school grade. So in this case, the better performers are the southern students. At the same time, when we consider the share of those freshmen who perform minus of 5 CFUs during the first year of university of more than 30 CFUs, we can see that the picture is more or less the same. Students from the northern regions perform better, and students from the, in this case I couldn't say from the south, but from the very peripheral provinces of the country are the worst performance at the university level. So, what are we going to do? Basically two things. Using some logic models with random effects, and with the random effects we use the hometown regions, because we want to try to control for this fact that students from different regions appear to have very different performances. And we use basically the first indicator, so one if they are they didn't do nothing during the first year, and 0 otherwise. Then we can control with several indicators the fitting of this model in order to try to understand what is the model who fits better with the data, and we use a machine learning algorithm in order to understand what is the model who better predicts our observations. So, when we look at the estimation of logic, so here I focus on just 3 models, but then I have more when we're going to test the fitting. So, when we look at socio-demographic plus non-standardized evaluations, and socio-demographics plus standardized evaluations. So, very briefly, the general picture is more or less exactly what we could expect. So, across the 3 models, the better performers are more or less female students of these are observations, so you have to read that if they are greater than 1, the students is more likely to be a bad performer. If it's less than 1, the students is more likely to be a good performer. So it's kind of counterintuitive, I know. The male students that comes from mothers who have less than the high school degree. It's very interesting because the father, as usual, is more or less not significant in explaining the performance of students. Who have a low individual ESCS and who have a low high school ESCS, even more, which are not Italian, and we comes from private high school and possibly not from Lyceum, are those who are more likely to be bad performers at the university. And this is consistent more or less with some little differences across all the models. And also we can see that also the effect of the evaluation is kind of consistent, basically. As high is the high school final grade, as high your chances to be a good performer, as high your INVALSI test, as high your chances to be a good performer. But what of this model fits and predicts better? In this context, we can see that from looking at the information criteria, which are criteria that helps us in choosing a model, comparing one to each other, we have to choose the lowest value as possible. Here I tested more than 3, but almost 10 different models. We can see that the lowest information criteria are those who refers to non-standardized evaluation. In this case, I have only the high school final grade. In this case, I added the oral examination. And I wasn't able to obtain these same results using standardized evaluation, even when I employed an interaction in order to obtain the same number of variables, because in one case I have 3 variables, high school final grade, oral examination in Italian, or examination in mathematics. So I said I have just 2 variables, INVALSI in mathematics, INVALSI in Italian, let me overfit the model putting an interaction. I'm not able to reach the same fitting as the non-standardized evaluation. The same happens looking at the R squared. The best R squared are here. In this case I have to choose the highest one. With the marginal, I account only for the fixed effect. In this one, I account also for the random effect. And basically, it performs at least as good as the model with all the variables. Here, I put both non-standardized and standardized evaluation. The only thing is that with evaluating the correctly predicted observation, I basically don't obtain any improvement in any case. They are all quite similar. So I use machine learning. Let me show this. And in this case, I obtain again that as much I insert variable, as much I lose the accuracy of my model, but always I obtain a slightly better result with inserting the non-standardized evaluation. And then what is the other interesting thing? Is how it changed the percentage of false low performer. So using standardized evaluation, it increased the percentage of students which are good that the model classifies as low performance. And this raises a very good question in this context, which is our first type error and our second type error. What is what we should avoid? To consider good students as bad students, or to consider a bad students as good students? This is, I think, a not trivial question. And okay, in the last 3 minutes I want to show you just this, and so how the random intercepts change. Our random intercepts are very interesting. Let's focus on the difference between non-standard and standard evaluation. In this case, we should interpret this kind of ranking among regions as at the same level of social demographic indicators and the same high school final grade, as students from Sicily, Calabria, Liguria. As you can see in this case, we have kind of a majority of southern regions on the top, and the northern regions are more or less in the middle of the graph. In this case, as students from the Sicily has higher chances to be a bad students. Here with the high school final grade. When I inserted the INVALSI test, this ranking changes. So at parity of socio-demographic characteristics and INVALSI scores with the exact same INVALSI score, apparently students from very northern regions, Liguria, Trentino, Lombardia, Friuli, Venezia Giulia, has higher chances to be a bad performer. So it seems that the link is kind of the opposite of what we are used to think. So is like INVALSI evaluation underestimate the performance of southern students more than the opposite. So here I have the robustness check on the other dependent variables, but it's more or less the same, it's just more robust in the face of predictions. But what I want to conclude is that I could say that we see something very near the position of Paglieri in the debate on the journal in Mulino. From the point of view of the prediction power, at this stage of our analysis, it seems that high school final grade and non-standardized evaluation are slightly better in evaluating the individual ability. And this is, in my opinion, something expectable because teachers had 5 years to know the students, they know the mindset that we saw in the scientific literature, they know if they are very capable of do very big progresses during the years. And so this is I think is quite good, but there is something that we can know only from the INVALSI examination, and is the condition of the entire secondary education system. What do we learn from our logic estimation is the situation in which we have still a strong stratification in our education system, where the rich are better and the poor are worse in the performance. And a so clear picture is possible only through the integration with what learned through the INVALSI examination. So from the one side, the evaluation with non-standardized evaluation, but the measurement through the standardized evaluation is the position of Paglieri that I think is very is a very good view of this situation. And thank you very much for your attention.